Thanks, guys. Great to be here with you. And some sad news to report today. The legendary activist Alice Whitehurst Moore. She's, of course, the wonderful woman who sparked the textbook wars back in 1974 while she was on the Kanawha County Board of Education in West Virginia. She has passed away at 82 years old. And incredible lady, right? A lot of young people today protesting the filth in the textbooks don't even realize, but this is the lady who got it all started. And of course, her efforts changed the course of American history. But as we can tell by the battles going on today, ultimately failed to remove the dishonest books, the propaganda, the radical indoctrination taking place in the government's so-called schools. Now, the movement that Moore led actually helped foreshadow what's going on right now, the ongoing war over porn and other perverted books in the schools. And as regular readers of the Newman Report know, the books and materials in the classrooms normalizing, I mean, every kind of sick perversion. Just yesterday, somebody from California sent me a book that was in all their school libraries called Push, that talks about raping babies and bestiality, sexual activities with dogs. Of course, you've all seen the ones normalizing gender confusion. We've talked about books where kids are told to solve world hunger by eating babies. I mean, this is the kind of sick stuff. Obviously, that she didn't succeed in getting this stuff out. It's only gotten worse. And the battles, are still going. Of course, parents all across the country have been reacting with horror to this, but the evil just keeps growing. Now, going back to Moore, she started her activism back in 1974. She was a school board member, and she found out that these new quote-unquote language arts textbooks were going to be promoting multiculturalism. We've talked about multiculturalism quite a bit here. It's this crazy notion that all cultures are basically equal, except Western civilization, which is terrible because it's based on the Bible. But all other cultures are equally awesome, right? You want to sacrifice virgins to your demon gods? Oh, that's fine, right? You want to be cannibalistic? Oh, that's fine, right? You don't want to judge those cultures. They're equally valid to yours, which of course we all know is preposterous, but this is the idea behind multiculturalism, right? Multiculturalism for its own sake. Now, after looking at these books, Moore was upset about the propaganda. She tried to stop them from being adopted, and when she was unable to do that, she actually called for boycotts of some of the businesses that were involved, and news reports at that time reported that the local community was paralyzed along with some of the surrounding counties, and eventually this whole saga became known as the Kanawha County textbook controversy, or the textbook wars is how some people have referred to it. Obviously, people were not happy about those books. If you read the news reports from the time, people were so upset. Some even reportedly at least resorted to violence. One person was actually killed, although of course Moore herself always told people to be peaceful in their efforts to protect the children. One activist who I spoke with about all this says that there may have even been, false flags by the education establishment to try to make the protesters look bad. But in any case, this had a profound significance back in the 1970s. It actually became a rallying point for the Heritage Foundation, as well as the very fast-growing, at that time, Christian conservative movement. And even Ronald Reagan was inspired by what was happening. But of course, unfortunately, 50 years and countless millions and billions of dollars later spent on school reform. Government schools are, of course, worse than ever. In fact, the books that Moore was objecting to back in the 70s, those would be considered way too conservative by the lunatics running the education asylum today. The books that parents are objecting to today are so perverted, they're so grotesque. Almost certainly, the people handing those to children would have been arrested for indecency, for giving obscenity to minors. And now we've got exemptions for schools and for libraries that want to give that stuff to the kids. And in fact, the tables have really turned now. Right now, we've got the FBI, the DOJ terrorizing parents who speak out at school board meetings. They've got major parental rights groups like Moms for Liberty being labeled hate groups and anti-government extremists by fringe left-wing hate groups like the Soviet Poverty Law Center. I mean, the Southern Poverty Law Center. Sorry, working with the Biden regime. So Moore, wonderful, lovely lady. She was the mother of 5 children. She was the wife of a pastor, and she passed away at her home in Tennessee. She eventually left West Virginia back to her home state of Tennessee. And according to her obituary, she was surrounded by loving family members when she went on to her eternal reward. She had 9 grandchildren who survive her and 6 great-grandchildren and counting. But her legacy of trying to protect innocent children from this horrific indoctrination in the government schools will live on for a long time, as she inspires parents of this generation to stand up and take action to protect the kids. But I do think it's important to mention, folks, that despite her heroic efforts, despite her making millions of Americans aware of the dangers that were taking place in the government schools, that were in these textbooks being used to brainwash kids, the horrors have only gotten worse. In fact, orders of magnitude worse today than they were back then. And so I think it's really time to just be clear. We need a new strategy. No matter how many billions, no matter how many hours you spend trying to reform this system, it's not going to get any better. It's hopeless. It's time for conservatives and Christians to recognize the government schools cannot be reformed. We need to just abandon them. Thanks, guys.